like to call to order the special meeting of the Monee Village Board of Trustees for March 2nd. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Trustee Holston. Here. Horn.
Here.
Pop. Here. Racy. Gonzalez.
Here.
And Gray.
Here. At this time, we're going to open to the public, agenda items only. If you'd limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay. No takers, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Horn and Raisik. Roll call, please.
Trustee Horn.
Yes.
Pop.
Yes.
Racy.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
And Holston. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Clerk's report.
I'm just going to read off a flyer we have for early voting, Mr. Mayor. Early voting starts Saturday, March 5th, 9 a.m. to noon here at Village Hall. And it goes through Saturday, March 12th, 9 a.m. to noon, and Monday through Friday, March 7th through the 11th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. right here in the Village Hall boardroom. Illinois primary elections require you to declare a political preference, and I have to mention that's all staffed by volunteers from Gulf Vista.
Thank you. I have nothing under my report, other than I'm glad to be here. I'm going to pass over the administrator. They're having some labor discussions and all that. For the board's approval, we'll go down to the officials report, and then we'll circle back into the administrator's report. At this point, Public Works, Trustee Gray.
I just have an update. As I discussed probably about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, we talked about, instead of having the ladies in the office do the late water bills, the Public Works Department has been out doing the door hangers. And again, with the snowstorm, going back to about February 22nd, that DJ and I sat and talked. He had 60 door hangers as 30-day notices, and it came all the way down to 12 people that actually had to be shut off. Out of those 12, 5 of those houses were vacant. It took our Public Works just about 3 hours to go around the town to do that. So basically what I'm getting at is it seems to be a project that is working well, and our residents are getting their late notices in time. The one thing that we did talk about too is, just so everybody's aware, that when you do pay by credit card, I believe it's a 48-hour notice. Mayor,
If you're doing it ahead of time,
yeah.
correct.
So, if you get it and you pay the night before it's supposed to be shut off, technically that bill won't come in. But also, superintendent said that if it's gonna be shut off on a Friday, he does give you lenience and won't do it until Monday, so you can take care of that bill possibly on Friday afternoon or on Saturday. So there is some lenience going on. But again, just kind of updating that process has been happening a lot smoother, and people are getting their notices and getting it taken care of.
Good, thank you. Parks and Rec with Trustee Gonzalez.
Unbelievably no report.
Finance with Trustee Horn.
Well, I'll take the time that she would.
I'm sure you will.
I got a few things to, for information for the public. Finance Department has created a department manual for review. The manual includes the following policies: minimum fund balance, debt policy, investment policy, expenditure approval process, procedure for creating a vendor, procedure for entering an invoice into the accounting system, using the accounts receivable module, and fiscal year end procedures. And so we're reviewing that right now, and those things have never been, they've never been written down, how those things ought to be done. So we're looking at that, reviewing that. We also, our finance director met with a representative from eConnect Direct in regards to investment tools. The village is trying to get a higher rate of return on its assets. With eConnect, the village would have access to short-term investments that are safe and offer higher returns than the village current receives, about 2.25 to 2.5 on assets. So we'll review that. Finance director and finance assistants have become members of the Illinois Government Finance Officers Association. Both attended their first meeting on February 19th. Topics discussed were House Bill 228, which is about until January 1 of 2020, the General Assembly may not enact any law creating any new unit of local government, including the division of existing units of local government. And then House Bill 175 is about Open Meetings Act, and Senate Bill 318 was a property tax extension limitation law, which is not signed into law. So those are the things they discussed at their meeting. And then on the IT side, we have a new village server and it's being configured. And we are currently working towards our fiscal year 2017 budget. Preliminary budget will be available later this month, and my hat goes off to our finance director who is working on all this stuff. He is always kept very busy. Do we have a presentation tonight about the eConnect? Did I read that right? Maybe not.
We can circle back. I think they're all Darrell and Ruben and others.
He called it way to me. Okay, so
They're here in the building, but in labor meetings.
they've not left the building.
They have not.
So that is all I have right now. And of course, if there's any questions, please come up and talk to me or contact me.
Business development trustee, that's the
I have a report from Kevin Daly. They've been doing good work again. Fitness Premier Business is moving into the vacant space for the first Midwest Crossing. Just as a side note, they have a nice Facebook page that I've been on a couple times. It looks like they have several businesses in the area, Monee, maybe some other places. I apologize.
That's not me.
And then Cool Clouds Vapor Shop is also moving into the vacant space at Governor's Highway. I have no idea what that is. I assume they,
Fuck your neighbor.
this is kind of what I thought. They're moving in as well. The JPR Development, Kevin has met with them to talk several times about tax increment financing, TIF financing, and options presented to him. They're also talking about bringing the businesses into compliance with the local ordinances. 3 businesses applications from that organization have been submitted to the village. DG Monee Special Use and Grants Committee was given a favorable recommendation by the P&Z tonight. Developer will seek local incentives for new construction of general merchandise store on the Governor's Highway. And there's a couple other things that cannot be disclosed at this time he's working on. I think he's doing a little bit of work. We'll have some exciting news for us in the very near future. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, sir.
Nobody on television heard a word you said.
Good. That's not very often that happens, is it?
All right, building services with, just tell me to be quiet. All right, you're done. All right.
They're going out. They went outside.
As long as one of them's open, we'll make sure. Just one.
Quick question. David, where's that store going in, that cloud or whatever?
Next to Jim's, Lincoln, Jim,
5741 Governor's Highway.
next to Lincoln Auto. Yeah.
Correct, thank you.
With video storage years ago.
Okay. Oh, it's just okay.
Trustee Pop, you ready for business? Yes, sir. Sorry, building services?
Sure. We do have a new employee in the building department, and TJ's very impressed with the way she's organized. They're doing what they call a tracker system, which gives them a real quick hands-on on what's going on. As far as existing businesses, the inspections, David, is that what you mentioned earlier? That they're going to be doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mention much detail, you go ahead.
And then there's resale and rental inspections. We had 21 in January. We have 38 in February. And in January, we had 3 permits taken out. Total cost total of $720. The value of the permits came out for the work is $14,108. But in February, we had 14 permits go out. And a cost of $4,409 with a value of the things that are being filled up, $823,382.
Good,
So things are happening in Monee.
good, good, good.
End of report.
Thank you, sir. Public safety with trustee Razor.
Yes, 2 things. First thing under police, just a reminder, this Saturday, March 5th at 2 p.m. at the Mantino Sportsman's Club. They were doing the polar plunge again for Special Olympics. You can find a donation link on the village's website. So if anybody can, please donate to the Special Olympics for Monee. And for EMA, on February 5th, the EMA team members met with the representatives from Whiting Corporation and Swenson Technologies at their facility to discuss emergency disaster plan for their annual employee training. The EMA team is formulating a training plan for this plant safety management team that will help them institute their plan. On February 19th, the EMA team members assisted the Monee Police Department with the funeral traffic detail for Chief Caruso and represented the village very well. On March 4th, the bloodborne pathogen training from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. for Village Hall boardroom. And finally, our sincere condolences to the Caruso family and Monee Police Department on the recent loss of retired Police Chief Russ Caruso. The village has lost a good friend. He will be greatly missed. End of report.
Thank you, sir. River, are you ready for your report? We'll circle back to you in a few.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Back on February the 10th, we had discussed about the proposal for a new water tower. And as it was previously presented to the board, we would respectfully ask the board to consider authorizing the execution of the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency loan application. This would allow village staff to move forward with the additional water tower and infrastructure project. The total cost estimate for the project is $4,262,131. If approved, the IEPA loan would be secured at the lowest interest rate possible and paid in full through village water revenue. With that, I just open it up for discussion.
And how many years for that loan?
It would be a 20-year.
That's what we discussed at the last meeting, the government and water revenue.
Correct.
And this is something we've known about for some time, as far as the one tower is about to retire, whether we want it to or not.
You looking for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Holston and Gonzalez, roll call please.
Trustee Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Holston,
Yes.
and North. Yes.
Anything else, sir?
With that, end of report. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry, I believe it's your turn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I got 6 items for the board's consideration. The first item is a resolution of committing local funds. If the board recalls, we passed a motion at the last meeting, I believe, it's for the CBG grant money. We need this resolution also approved to be executed by the mayor and signed by the village clerk.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Olston and Gray?
Discussion?
Yes, sir.
CDBG, what's that stand for? Forget it.
I believe Community Development Block Grant Funds.
Okay.
This is in connection with the Egyptian Trail project, I believe.
Okay, and that's coming out of, okay, it's a grant, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I think part of it comes from MFT funds too.
This is the second part of that submittal for the grant to possibly receive up to $600,000 in funds, so.
Oh, that's for the court.
Correct, it was just the second part that got
Okay,
missed.
all right, I knew it was in there somewhere, I was good. Like, yeah, thank you.
Any more discussion?
Not from
Roll call, please.
Trustee Racick,
Yes.
Gonzalez, Gray,
Yes.
Holston. Yes. Warren,
Yes.
and Pop.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item is an ordinance.
I'm sorry, this is resolution 2016-3.
I beat you to the punch. The next item, Your Honor, is the ordinance for a variance submitted by DG Monee Governors LLC. The zoning board held a hearing, I believe roughly a month ago now, with respect to a variance application, which they recommended approval. I believe the gentleman is here tonight in case there's any questions from the board. It appears there will be a development on Governor's Highway. There was a favorable recommendation. The variance is up for the board's review and consideration.
And this is a two-part
Yes, sir.
process?
Yes, sir.
And just so that the board's aware of this, the first part is a variance, which has to do with the, primarily focused on the parking adjustment in the spaces there, but the second part, item number 3, has to do with just it's due diligence on the part of the developer, wanting to make sure that the, is basically asking for an affirmation of the, our village code is not so granular that it'll list every single industry code. So therefore, one of the things that the developer is doing is requesting, through the purpose of a special use, but he's asking for affirmation on the second part here, that it would be, the intended use would be consistent with the commercial zoning. And that's just clarification on those 2 parts. So the first one here, item number 2, we're looking for a favorable motion to move forward with that.
Can we do both at the same time?
No,
No, sir.
no, they're independent, but,
I'll second that.
so we got Raisik and Ormer, okay. Sorry, all right.
Can we,
Go ahead.
can we clarify for the record, we're taking the parking from what to what?
Do you have the numbers, Scott?
53 or 40?
It's from 40 parking spots, to allow 40 parking spots, not the required 53.
We just need to put that in the record.
Yes, sir.
If I could insert one thing that we've talked about, that would be with the same physical amount of space identified. We had talked at one point, I don't know that it clarifies this, but it might be worth bringing up at this point. In the future, if you need an additional handicap parking spot, the same amount of space, but simply allowing you to flip 2 regular spots for a handicap if you wanted to in the future. Because I know we talked about that at one point. If you had to,
We were working on a site plan for it.
right, so if you ever had a need for that in the future, if the board would consent to that, that way he doesn't have to come back and say, hey, listen, we have a desire for more handicap spots, but we're gonna sacrifice, it's a 2-for-1, because every handicap takes 2 regular spots, so.
How many handicap positions would
What's the, do you have that there, sir? I just wanna make sure that he has that latitude without having to come back before us again all over again.
DJ's saying there's 2.
2, in front of the school.
Okay, so,
That takes my mother-in-law and my wife. Strike that second part.
They heard that one.
They heard it. Knows about it now, David.
Anyhow, so if the board would allow that latitude, I would request that the motion be amended to include that extra latitude, that they could adjust with the same amount of physical space, but the parking spots could be adjusted to accommodate
Do we need
handicap.
verbiage in here, Larry?
Larry, is there a way to
Do
deal
we need
with it?
verbiage in here stating that?
I would just say, subject to further village staff review and approval, so in case they do want to come in, like the mayor indicated, it doesn't have to come back before the board. So if staff feels comfortable with the arrangement, that'd be fine.
Okay, so is that acceptable?
I'm fine with that, so long as, you know, we're taking the,
It's the same floor plan.
our variance request is from 50, the required 53, based on 9,100 square foot building to 40 spaces. I think the site plan that we have presented is acceptable. In the event that it's not, if the village were to request additional handicap spaces, as you said, it's a 2-for-1 trade, so our 40 then would go down to 38. I wouldn't want to have to come back in for some variance request to go from 53 to 38 to 36.
And what he's saying is the additional wording would be included in the recording of this. It would allow for, simply for you to just talk to staff about that.
Yes.
Okay.
So it doesn't come back all the time.
Are you okay with it?
I'm fine with it. It's the site plan, well, we haven't gone through the architectural plans yet. The site plan we've submitted thus far acceptable with the 2 spaces shown.
Provided all the engineering and
Yeah, there's
there's
still
other
ultimately other
aspects to
things.
that, but
But just give me some latitude to float back and forth on that, without having to expand additional space, physical geography to make that. All right, so we had a motion in a second, so Raisik and Horn,
Moved and Horn second.
it would, Larry, correctness on this, does it go back to Raisik again to allow that variation? The adjustment of the handicap issue?
Yes, sir. I'll entertain a motion with the updated wording and variation of parking spaces.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
Okay.
One more question?
Yes, sir.
And looking at this drawing, I want to make sure this is showing there's going to be 2 entrances to this,
No. The building or to the site?
to the side.
Um,
One main, I see that.
The only entrance is off of the road that we're proposing to dedicate to the village, which has not been solidified yet. We are not pursuing access off of Governor's Highway.
That's a new road,
It is proposed.
proposed new road. And who's paying for that?
It's just it'd be an easement or a right of way that'd be dedicated to the village if the terms of the,
Have we run this by the fire department? There's no issue with them? Okay, that's fine, that's all I'm.
they actually will approve the site plan based on that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Holston,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
and Raisik.
Yes.
Ordinance 1742.
This is K2.
Thank you, Mayor. The next ordinance in connection with this project, as the mayor indicated, is an ordinance for a special use request on behalf of DG Monee Governors LLC. Once again, the gentleman appeared before the zoning board 3 weeks ago. The zoning board made a favorable recommendation. As the mayor indicated, all the gentleman's attempting to do is delineate that his proposed use is a permitted use under the current zoning request, and it appears that it is, so all he wants us to do is reaffirm that his use is a permitted use.
Entertain a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raisik,
Second.
trustee Pop. Roll call, please.
Trustee Gray,
Yes.
Holston,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
and Gonzalez.
Yes.
And if I could backtrack just a second here, Mr. Clerk. Ordinance for item K2
1742,
and number 3.
1743.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We look forward to doing business in the community and work with everybody to bring this site to fruition.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
So are you going to
Michelle.
Next.
Thank you, Mayor. The next item on the agenda is a review, I believe, of the Kersey project, Kersey Builders, I believe, Eagle Fair. The board recalls Mr. Flanagan appeared a few times before us. I believe his representatives are here tonight. He's attempting to amend the annexation agreement that we signed in March of 2004. And also, we talked about the impact fee. What is presented to the board tonight are two ordinances. One deals with ordinance number 1604 with respect to the impact fee that we imposed roughly 6-7 years ago. It's for the board's review and consideration. I will summarize it. Basically, if Mr. Flanagan and his company built a home of a minimum of 1,850 square feet, within 2 years, we would reduce the fee from $12,000 to $6,000. Also, if the dwelling exceeds 2,000 square feet in living area, the occupancy permit was issued within a time frame, the entire fee of $12,000 would be waived. I believe Mr. Flanagan and his representatives might have some, let's say, questions on this, but I believe this was the sentiment of the board. Again, it gives Mr. Flanagan some incentive to construct in a timely fashion. I believe he's shown the blueprints of the board as to what he would build. If the board recalls too, the initial agreement back in 2004 when we first came into the village, I think the minimum square footage was 1,650 square feet. So he has increased that, but he has asked us for consideration of the reduction of the impact fee, which is presented to the board tonight. And before the vote's taken on that, in connection with that is also the ordinance amending the annexation agreement, which we talked about. The three essential terms of the amendment deal with the square footage. You go up to 1,850 square feet as opposed to 1,600 feet, 1,650. Mr. Flanagan would also waive the recapture fee that we talked about extensively. That Mr. Flanagan, his previous partner, Mr. Willis, installed a force main, I believe, out on that site. He would waive any recapture costs that he'd be entitled to, if any. And there's also a conveyance of certain properties from ourselves to Mr. Flanagan and from Mr. Flanagan or Kersey Builders over to us for the water tower. The permit fees, impact fees, which I got help from DJ and staff, are delineated in the agreement. So it's a twofold project. One would be the ordinance amending the impact fee, and two would be the ordinance, if the board deemed appropriate, approving the amendment to the annexation agreement. I believe the board asked Mr. Flanagan to bring in representatives from the State Bank of Countryside to verify his intentions, and I believe they're here tonight for the board, so any questions that may be addressed.
Larry, I think on the first part of K4, there was discussion, and I'm not sure if the board.
No. Beyond the 2 years?
Well, yeah, to allow some discretion if the staff felt necessary to extend that in order to continue the development. Or did the board want that to come back before the board in order to allow that latitude to extend it? I'm trying to remember exactly how that was worded. It was a few weeks ago.
I guess 2 years.
Just to have the ability for staff, in order to continue the economic program and development of all that sort of thing, to allow some latitude for that extension.
Past the 2 years.
Past 2 years. They would go to the 2 years, but if they wanted to extend it beyond that, or does the board want it to come back before them in order to make that extension longer than the 2 years?
I can see the benefits of both, but.
Your call. Makes no difference to me. I'm just trying to make it efficient so that staff can continue to make this move forward. Trustee Olson, I think you had things at the last meeting, so your preference.
I have not changed my mind. I think we review it in 2 years. I would love to expand it. I would love to see more houses here. If they've made good faith effort and things are going well in 2 years, we can talk about it. But this also affects the finances of the village in terms of what we do everything, so I'd like to see us review it in 2 years, and hopefully by then he's sold about a dozen houses, and we're all happy, and things get better.
More than that.
I'm with you, Stevens. That would be my preference.
Any other reason to change it? Okay.
No, I thought when we discussed it, we were, as far as with Kessler, it was a $6,000 reduction. And if the home was sold within a certain amount of time, we as a board in a village were allowed the other 6,000.
But that was worded into the first part.
Is that how it's worded?
Well, the way I have it, trustee Pop, is indicating that if he builds within the 2 years and the square footage, we would waive the $6,000. If he built 2,000 square feet within the 2 years, it'd be the entire $12,000 fee.
So that was our incentive to keep the houses a little bit bigger and still accommodate the timeline. All right, with the administrative extension not part of this, as written, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the first part of K4.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Mayor, before you make that motion, I just want to make sure it's clear, right, that
Can you come to the mic, please?
Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, it was my understanding that we did an entire fee, because like the two models we were going to put up, one was going to be 1850 or 1860, and the other one is like 2150 that I got both plans, like, you know.
Yeah, and the original recommendation presented to the board 3 weeks ago, I believe it was that they were going to reduce it by half to the $6,000 from the $12,000. What the board has taken additional latitude to encourage you to go to the extra size would be as if you actually were to go above the 2,000. We're not going to require it to be above 2,000, but if you go above the 2,000, then they'll give you the full 12,000. But otherwise, they're going to stick to what they had originally said before, which was they would be at 6,000, which is half of the impact fee waived. So they offered before to waive half the impact fee as part of the discussions and the negotiations, I believe you have with the administrator. What they've done is they tried to sweeten it a little bit more for you so that if you had an opportunity to go that extra size above the 2,000 to be more consistent with a lot of the homes that are already there, there'd be an incentive for you and everything else to go, and you'd get the full 12,000 waived.
Yeah, I guess I misunderstood it, because I thought we were going to, as I said, we have to start off with the smaller house first.
And you'll get half of the
According to my
12,000.
notes, the first two houses, we were doing that on the first two only.
We were waiving the whole
On the first two, my notes said that we were doing that on the first two only. After that, it had to be above 2,000, just to get them started.
Okay.
I understood, Mr. Holstein, that we do it for the two, and then you guys were going to, if we were selling the houses, you guys, I know you were taking the half off the 2,000, but then you'd review it or leave it up to the village board to review it after the first two, if the smaller house sold, and if they were more.
And that's where the board said, no, we don't want to leave it up to the administration, we want to make it over 2,000 after that, but the first two were to get them started. That was what the board agreed to.
Okay, so
So this ordinance, though, does not apply to the spec homes, so if the case that you are right, that the first two spec homes were waived, but if the buildings, if they, you know, that they're sold within the 2 years, any homes beyond the spec homes would be the 6,000, and then if it's over 2,000, be the full 12,000 waived.
and the first two homes that you're referring to have to be completed within 12 months then? Because that was what the original terms was also, because Mr. Flanagan, if you recall, the original agreement was going to only be for the first year, and then the board decided to extend it to a full 2 years to give you a little more latitude and timeliness on that as well. So, I mean, the goal is to try to create an incentive to get this done in a timely manner, and the board had expressed the latitude in that regard. If the board would consent to the first two being done within the first 12 months from today, then, because we've been through that part before, but, you know, just trying to solidify this with you. So if you, is the board okay with, aside from this ordinance, or an amendment, Larry, does it require?
No, so you could.
It's just simply a
You
resolution.
do a side letter for the first two, if the board's gonna waive we don't have to do the ordinance completely over, do a side letter saying,
I understand, but say I do too, and Mr. Boyd from State Bank does too, and Joe does too, how does that work?
Well, our agreements with Kersey Builders, you know, the impact fees with every lot out there. But technically, our agreement, the ordinance speaks for itself. I mean, you'll run with the land, but the annexation agreement per se is with you.
I think the intent of the board was though that if another builder comes up, we would certainly
Fair is fair.
entertain that. So,
But I got Mr. Boyd here from State Bank, so maybe he might want to have some input on it.
but, I mean, our deal is with your company. If there's another company that wants to do a deal, we'll certainly encourage them, but we're not.
Yeah, but would they have to go back to the meeting and go through all this stuff again, or it's so, say I do two houses, Mr. Boyd wants to do two houses, like, can he come and get the impact fee waived, or does he have to?
Sounds like you're negotiating for another company. I'm a little
Oh,
confused.
well, I'm negotiating to get as many people in as we can to build some houses, you know, and.
Respectfully, I understand what you're saying there. I think the board had the discussion on the table, the last meeting was, whatever we did for one, we want to make equitable for all. That being the case, again, cycling it back to a 12-month program from today, would the board be inclined to include that same provision, 12 months, complete waiver, for any of the properties, per property owner, for the developers to
That
go
probably
in
would
and-
make a difference.
I'm just asking a question, I don't know, that's,
One thing, Seamus, how many builders are out there then? Because if it's 10 builders, it's
I got 30, State Bank of 11, there's a couple other builders with 4 and 5 lots, there's some people that don't have the lots, that just gave them back to the bank and walked away from them, like.
so basically you might be talking about 6 to 7.
I don't even know, if maybe 4 or 5, I'd say, right now, you know, but again, it's hard to say until we start moving dirt, then people will start coming out and realizing that we're actually working here again, you know. Then the other builders that have the lots might actually come out and do something, you know.
You own 75% of them.
It's correct.
Respectfully though, that the spec homes and everything doesn't have anything to do with the annexation agreement and the ordinance now too, so I think this is two different conversations that we're having.
okay. So, agreed, and we do have a motion, we don't have a second yet, but let me clarify this. We do have the ordinance K4 Part 1, if you will, that we're discussing right now. I'm just gonna share my opinion, very briefly if I may. And that is that I think anything we can do to spur an immediate influx of development. So if you were to extend this to any other properties from this date up to 12 months for, would be a consideration, and that might be a side letter, that might be a side, or an amendment to this ordinance itself from the date of this ordinance. I'm just, Trustee Olson.
I completely am on board with that as long as they're not all model homes.
I agree.
But if they're gonna be, if they've got a contract and they sign, I'm all on board for that. But I would not like to see 7 model homes out there. I think that would be a concern.
Right, well, occupancy has to be issued.
With him, it's a model home because he's getting started and he gets full credit for that. But if somebody else comes and they have a home under contract within the next 12 months.
And admittedly with Mr. Flanagan, there's been extra negotiations that's taken place regarding the next part of the ordinance, where there's swapping of land and different things like that that pertain specifically to Kersey and yourself as a
But
representative.
I'd like for the board to have the latitude to be able to have a little bit of input as this process unfolds. Because ideally, it'll fold for more than 2 years.
Correct, but if we set a timeline where occupancy would have to be issued within 12 months from now, in order to get that benefit of the side letter or whatever Larry is referring to, is the board okay with a modification to this ordinance to stipulate as a 12 months from now, if occupancy is issued, we would waive the full 12,000 to the extra acceleration?
Might be difficult to the occupancy, because
It
buildings.
says 2 years within the agreement now.
I understand that, but because he's asking for a full waiver on the first year of a per property owner, if you will, because Kersey owns 30 lots.
Well, what we agreed to was a full waiver on the first 2 spec homes. Then after that, any home, I mean, I'd be willing to say any home over 2,000 for the first 2 years, then fine.
Okay.
I'd be willing to go that, but I don't want to see a bunch of model homes out there.
I see that.
2,000 square feet, that completely messes the neighborhood up.
I see the merits of that, but we already have the terms, that's already written into
Right,
this.
right, so I'm okay with that, just saying, okay, any builder that puts a home in there within the next 2 years that's over 2,000 square feet,
They get the whole 12,000, and that's already in the agreement, that's already in the ordinance. So-
okay?
So I think,
I still wanted the 1850 to start with, you know.
well, and you're covered, Mr. Flanagan, you're already covered for your first 2 with those terms anyhow, based on what we've already said. So we'll make the adjustment, a side letter, if you will, if the board will, let's pass this ordinance, and then
I'll second the motion just to get it on the floor.
thank you. Trustee Gonzalez, you had more discussion?
Yeah, we will.
Well, now's the time, we got a motion and a second, but if you have more discussion, that's fine.
But I just wanted, Seamus, do you understand, because we've already given you, for the spec homes, that 12,000 will be waived, but this ordinance specifically is any buildings or any homes that are sold beyond those 2. So I just want you to understand that. So for any of the other builders or the developers that come to us, yes, I'm fully on board with making that. So I just want you to be clear that those first 2 are covered for you. Yeah?
Yeah,
All right.
Okay.
and if the other builders come along, their first 2 is covered.
And then we would,
That specifically hasn't been stipulated.
That's
There-
a separate issue.
That's a separate issue,
That does not-
and that may be open for discussion, but again, the discussion is already within the ordinance itself, where it stipulates their entire fee will be waived as long as it meets the threshold of the size. And that's good for 2 years.
And we'll bring it up for after 2 years and we'll take a look at it again.
Well, give us some progress, man. Come on.
I just want to make sure we're
Show us what
fair.
you're made of, come on.
I brought the heavy hitters here tonight.
I appreciate that, I like
I'd
that.
like to hear from you.
Well, they're ready. Mr. Boyle, take the floor, please.
Tell us how much you love Mr. Flanagan.
We don't have enough time. I'm the vice chairman of Countryside State Bank, and with me is Jim Murphy, who's had the privilege of trying to sell these lots for us. I've had these lots for now going on 7 years, and we have yet to make a deal. And part of the problem is we can't get any action out in there. It's kind of tough competition. You're competing here with Northwest Indiana.
Sure.
Lower taxes, good schools, you know, all the same attributes that your community has as well. But the subdivision's been dormant for so long, we need something to spur some action here. And Jim has sold over 2,000 lots over the last 5 years in Will County, and he's encouraged me and talking to Seamus to try to, we need to get something going here to get this subdivision back on track.
Okay. Thank you.
So any consideration to any builder would be appreciated. We're more than willing to lend into the subdivision with a good quality builder, which you would want as well. So, and we gotta keep that price consideration, you know, the competition's very keen out here, so price becomes paramount. And anywhere they can cut $10,000 out of a deal, it makes it more encouraging for them.
12,000, don't let him have that 2,000.
Thanks for your time.
You messed it up on me, man. I was making 2,000.
Sir,
Mr. What?
Oh, sorry.
couple comments. Countryside, first of all, has an excellent reputation, so it's exciting to have them as part of this venture. It adds a lot of credibility to a venture that's been tried several times and wasn't successful, unfortunately. Secondly, you know, the village very definitely wants to have homes here, and we are interested in working with the bank in that respect. Make a note that the roads there have all been paved at the village expense recently. Streets have been addressed with handicap recently at the village expense recently. And as you drive through the community, you can see a lot of other roads, so this is the place to move to. The village has already put our foot forward. And we have an excellent economic development person who was here a minute ago. Oh, there you are. And we definitely want to work with the bank as well as with Seamus, but we want to see some homes.
I agree.
And, you know, we're waiving the entire fee for those 2 model homes, willing to waive those fees if we pass this for every home that's built within 2 years and sold. And if there's extra ways that the village administration can work with you, I know Ruben will absolutely do that, as will the board, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but please understand that we want.
I do,
we want
and you wouldn't be alone in this, you know, Orland Park, put the permit fee on the back end, and, you know, all the, these have been a tough 5 or 6 years, so we have to work together if we're gonna get out of this.
Absolutely.
I want to see some dirt
Movements.
Right.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something real quick.
Sure.
One thing about these subdivisions that I call them broken developments, that the longer they stay the way they are, the longer they'll continue to be. And although I think this was a great opportunity here tonight for everybody, you should consider ongoing discussing with other builders and encouraging them to come in and build in that subdivision. Selling a model home, pre-selling a model home in that neighborhood is going to be almost impossible. So it's going to be very important that you know, allow other builders to put houses up in that neighborhood, and that's the way they get sold. Because I can tell you, most homes that are sold with that square footage at that price range in our market are sold when they're finished, not pre-sold. So, that's something to think about next time when Seamus comes back to beat you up. I think it's very important. And I can tell you that the subdivisions I worked in other areas like Frankfurt and Mokina that were broken developments, I said the same thing to those village boards, that you gotta get sticks up in the air. That's the only way you're gonna get out of it. And they performed. So I just wanted to add that.
Anybody else?
Sticks up in the air?
Yeah.
Sticks up in the air?
Sticks up in the air, yeah. Start building houses.
Slang for start building houses.
Start building houses, yeah.
Thank you.
More than moving dirt.
We do have a motion by trustee Horn, I believe, second by trustee Holston. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Holston,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
and Gray.
No.
And this is part 1 of 4, so that would be 1744, I believe. Okay. Then we have, Larry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second part.
The other ordinance in connection with this is the ordinance approving the execution of an amendment to the annexation agreement dated March 24th, 2004, by and between Kersey Builders and the Village of Monee. It's before the board's review and consideration.
And that would allow for the authorizing the mayor and the clerk to
Yes,
sign the transfer deed and all that.
Yes, sir.
on this property.
The annexation, amending it to waive the recapture, amending the square footage, and also the conveyance of properties from Kersey Builders and vice versa.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Gonzalez and Holston. Roll call, please.
Trustee Horn,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
No.
Holston,
Yes.
Thank you. And that was ordinance number?
that's a separate ordinance then?
Yeah, it would be.
1745.
Thank you, Mayor. And
That's home, Seamus.
Ready to go, I got the shovel and pick them.
Hey, you better put some sticks in there over there.
Thank you, guys.
I want to see some 2x4s flying over there.
I'll bring them myself tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you all. Thank you.
thank you, Mayor. The last item is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a letter of agreement by and between the Village of Monee and Crete Monee School District 201U with respect to the use of their facilities across the street. I believe
The outside property.
I'm sorry, yeah, yes, sir. The outside properties only. I believe staff has taken a look at it. From our standpoint, it looks fine. but you need the mayor's authority to execute the contract.
Is this for the softball field, and baseball fields and everything, for the strings?
So what is the motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Discussion?
Yes, sir.
So have we ever had a formal agreement with the school district, or is it always just with
It's always been, kind of
handshake, or?
old, it's been, it's a borrowed phrase, it's been old school.
Just an understanding.
Yeah,
No,
it's,
No, we
it's,
had to fill up one.
yeah, yeah, so this is step one, and this has to do with the outside properties. Step two is going to be, probably a more robust, probably an intergovernmental agreement that would deal with the potential use of the gymnasium, different things like that at times when they're not using them. And that's been something that, staff has been working on. Ruben, DJ, Mary Jo have been working on for, quite some time. And it's government, it doesn't move fast. But that's the step. So step one is right now just facilitating the external arrangements of the ball field area.
And then,
basically.
yeah, and then on this, letter, agreement letter, the actual hour times are not filled in.
They're not on this because we need to determine from the school district what their hour, it's gonna be adjustable at the, and I guess that's where we need a little bit of
Depending on
latitude for
season
the
and
board.
so forth.
Yeah, so it's basically, whether the hours are stipulated specifically or not, this is to indicate our conformity to honoring the fact that we don't want to do something that would be overlapping with school hours.
Okay.
That's the primary focus of that. And their hours may change at that particular facility based on the students they have in there.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion, I'm sorry, do we have a second, trustee Gray? Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Holston,
Yes.
and Horn.
Yes.
Thank you. Larry, do you have anything else at this time, or do you?
I skipped one, Mayor. Just an update in Indian Victory redevelopment agreement.
Yes, sir.
Just to let the board know, I believe we approved the redevelopment agreement, I want to say roughly 6 weeks ago, I think January 27th. The agreement was sent over to Mr. Trico, who's counsel for the Indian Development. And I know Kevin's worked extremely hard on obtaining the redevelopment cost. We've had some discussions with Mr. Trico, who's counsel for the owner of the site. We indicated that we showed him the increment, how much money could be generated from the site. So from our standpoint, the agreement has been sent to their council for their review. I believe there's some questions yet. They're looking into whether there's other costs that we could reimburse the developer for. Again, our hands are somewhat tied because of what the statute calls for, but discussions are ongoing. But the agreement that was approved by the board, I believe on January 27th, was probably sent out January 28th. So any written correspondence from either side since then, there has been just ongoing discussions, but the agreement, again, approved by the board, is in their council's possession. So we are trying to get the deal finalized, trust me, and a lot of work by Ruben and Kevin, a lot of work, but right now we're,
Once it comes to council, it's got to stay at that level pretty much.
yeah, I am prohibited from talking to anybody once there's an attorney involved, and vice versa. And we are discussing it, but ultimately you gotta go back to the clients, it's not an easy process, but we're trying to see what we can do. So it's not a done deal, but we're getting close. That's all I have, John.
Thank you, sir.
Item K6, that was a resolution that passed.
Larry,
Just a motion, a resolution, motion sent.
resolution, just put it as a resolution under this?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it as a resolution and this is.
2016-4.
Good catch. Easier to index them with the number. Okay, Larry, anything else, sir?
That's all I have, John.
Item L, old business.
What? I didn't hear you.
Old business?
Oh,
Why'd you look at me?
I didn't look at anybody, at least not in the mirror. Item M, new business.
I just have one thing, and it's, well, we're gonna talk about cancer again. Just today or yesterday, we started Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and American Cancer Society has a long-term goal, it's kind of short-term goal, that 80 by 2018. So the statistics show that folks that are needing or should get screened, starting at age 50 or for colonoscopies and colon cancer, are not getting them. It's estimated only 30% of the people actually that should be getting those screenings are getting those screenings. So the goal of the American Cancer Society is to get that increase, that we're talking about it enough and feel comfortable enough, and people get their orders and actually go get those colonoscopies and go get those screenings, that will increase that percentage from 30% to 80% by 2018. So if you haven't gone to the doctor and have get an order for that, please do so, and please go have it done. Very recently, or within the last 2 years, I've had 2 nephews diagnosed with colon cancer in their 40s, and one succumbed to the disease and one has not. So I beg you, men and women need to be screened. It's the third leading cancer killer, can be prevented and cured with the right tools. And secondly, on that note, is tomorrow night is the kickoff celebration at Bryan's from 6 to 8 for the Relay for Life of Beecher Piatone Creek Monee. So if anybody's interested or wanting to come to that, it's open, bring a friend. If you want to find out about more for the Relay for Life, was actually happening in July, come see me after the meeting, I'll get an invitation to you.
What's the time tomorrow?
Tomorrow, 6 to 8.
Thank you. Open to the public, non-agenda items. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Come to the podium and give your name and address if you would.
My name is Ken Vasika. I live at 4924 La Quinta. My question is for Mr. Batista, I think, about water bills and water issues. You gave us a whopping number on the cost, and I don't say it's not justified for the water tower, but I also read in the paper that we had a smoke issue with the sewers, and that the sewers needed mending as well. I understand we're going to have a 5% increase over 5 years. 5% all the time. Are these numbers actually going to be able to be supported by the increase? Are we going to be able to pay that bill? And do the sewers and the water tank with the 5% increase 5 times?
Yes, through the 20 years with the additional 5% increase in what the revenues, current revenues that are currently being taken in now, the number was generated over the 20-year period, showing that we would have a surplus, a monthly surplus, roughly $12,000 each month.
Now do sewers and the water tank?
Yes, that is correct.
I'm good.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Since we're talking. Water bills were sent out, they'll be due 4/4. So anybody pay your water bill?
What's your name?
4/4.
Name and address, please.
Thank you. So since they're talking, after 4/4, there'll be a late notice imposed, so the bills are out. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I do have a little under new business.
Yeah, could you grab the microphone?
I just want to clarify, we did talk about the possibility of having a meeting of the committee on the whole
Correct.
in the future. Do we need one for the next meeting, which would be next week, correct?
It would be next week.
Do we need a meeting?
And the plan would be to have a meeting, and I believe at this point, we do have some ordinances that I do want the board to digest and have some skin in the game of whether they move forward or they don't. The bottom line is there's some discussion there on those items. The goal is, I think as we indicated before, that if we're gonna have committee of the whole for that regular board meeting night, then we're gonna try to simplify, other than, if we got a development agreement, we're not gonna say, no, we're not gonna vote on it, but, you know, generally speaking, we're gonna try to simplify it, even the committee, or what do you call it, even the officials report and different things like that, we probably almost skip on those nights that we're having the committee of the whole, because there's gonna be so much else that's going on, other than things that might need to be addressed,
So we do need committee on the whole this week?
I think we might as well get in the habit of doing it occasionally.
What time?
It'd be 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock? Want to clarify that for the public, right?
Yes, sir. Okay, and at this point, I believe we do have anything else to open the public? We do have one item, I believe, for executive session, if we could. I'll entertain a motion to go to executive session.
Second.
Gonzalez and Raisik. I'm sorry, this is for matters of personnel. Bargaining, no, whatever. Personnel bargaining.
Read the vote.
Roll call?
I got a motion and I got a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
7:40, trustee Racick,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Knopf.
Yes.
Okay, this should be brief.